Tommy DeSimone walked into that room expecting a title. What he got was a bullet. Goodfellas never showed you the real reason the Gambinos had to kill Tommy. And once you hear it, the ending hits different. To understand why, you need to go back to one name: Billy Batts. His real name was William Benvenna, and he was a made man under the Gambino family. In that world, that status meant one thing: nobody touches you without permission from the commission first. Tommy DeSimone didn't care. One night in 1970 in Queens, a small argument turned into a beating, and that beating turned into a murder. Tommy, Jimmy Burke, and Henry Hill buried Billy Batts and walked away thinking it was over. But killing a made man without approval doesn't just disappear. That kind of move usually brings a fast and brutal response. So if the rule was so obviously broken, why did Tommy stay alive for 9 more years? And that's where the story gets strange, because the response didn't come. Not right away, not for 9 years. The Gambinos knew one of their own had vanished, and they understood it was a hit. What they didn't have was a name. Nobody talked. Not Henry Hill, not Jimmy Burke, and most importantly, not Paul Vario, the man who ran their crew. Without a witness or a confirmed source, there was no target to go after. The Lucchese side stayed quiet, and that silence kept Tommy alive. It looked like patience from the outside, but it wasn't patience at all. It was a dead end. And while the Gambinos waited with nothing solid to act on, Tommy kept going like nothing was ever coming for him. He had no idea that the clock had already started. Then, in 1974, Tommy made a move that had nothing to do with Billy Batts, and it turned out to matter more than anyone realized at the time. A man named Ronald Giroth was killed that year, and that changed the direction of everything. Giroth wasn't a boss. He wasn't even a made man. He was just an associate, but he had one connection that made his death dangerous. He was close to John Gotti. At that point, Gotti was still climbing, running with the Bergen crew out of Queens and building a reputation for being fiercely loyal to the people around him. Giroth was one of those people. The reason behind his death made it worse. Tommy had been involved with Giroth's sister. The relationship fell apart badly, and when Giroth found out and made a threat, Tommy didn't let it sit. He went to the man's door and shot him. That single decision made the situation personal. Gotti didn't forget things like this. He carried that anger forward, and as his power grew over the years, so did his reason to act on it. That was one problem, but Tommy kept creating more. After that, Tommy kept moving the same way he always had. More violence, more decisions that drew attention, and more reasons for people above him to see him as a problem. The pattern was impossible to ignore. In that world, one bad night can be explained away, but a pattern turns a useful earner into a liability, and eventually somebody higher up has to deal with it. Then something happened inside his own circle that made everything worse. While Henry Hill was doing time, Tommy crossed a line involving Karen Hill. This wasn't a business dispute or a territory issue. It was personal, directed at someone from his own crew, someone whose husband was doing time and couldn't protect her. In that world, you don't touch the family of your own people. That alone would have caused serious problems, but there was another layer on top of it. Paul Vario, the man who ran the crew and held real power over Tommy's future, was rumored to have his own connection to Karen at the time. So what Tommy had done was not just a violation. It was a direct insult aimed at the man protecting him. And then the thing that had been protecting Tommy for nearly a decade finally ran out. For years, silence had been the thing keeping Tommy alive. As long as nobody confirmed what had happened to Billy Batts, the Gambinos had no one to move against. Then Vario picked up the phone and called the Gambino side. He gave them the one thing they had been missing for nearly a decade: a name. He told them Tommy was the one who killed William Benvenna. That single call erased 9 years of uncertainty in one conversation. And the reason behind it had very little to do with respect for the commission or loyalty to the rules. Vario gave Tommy up because of what Tommy had done inside his own crew. The old crime became a clean excuse, a reason nobody would question, a reason that justified everything on paper, while the real motive stayed buried underneath it. Once that call was made, everything that had been sitting separately suddenly had a reason to move together. The Gambinos had their confirmed reasons sitting on the table. Gotti had been carrying his own grievance for years and now had the cover to act. Tommy's own boss had stepped back and left him exposed. And in the background, there was one more problem growing quietly. One of Tommy's brothers had become an informant, and in that world, when something like that happens, suspicion bleeds onto everyone connected to the same name. Tommy had become a risk on multiple fronts at once, and once that happens, the people who once stood beside you start looking the other way. And when it finally happened, it looked nothing like the movie. Goodfellas gives you a clean ending. Tommy walks in expecting a ceremony and gets a bullet instead. It's controlled and final. The real story doesn't give you that kind of clarity. In January 1979, Thomas DeSimone disappeared. No body was found, no witnesses came forward. No single version of events has ever been confirmed. Some people said he was picked up quietly and killed by men connected to Gotti. Others claimed different names were involved and that the details were deliberately kept buried. Every version that's come out over the years shifts a little and leaves something important missing. After all this time, nobody can say with certainty exactly how it happened or who pulled the trigger. There was no funeral, no grave. His family had nothing to stand over. The stories about what they did with him have never been confirmed and never will be. They didn't just kill him, they erased him. Which makes it worth stepping back for a second because the man in the film and the man in real life weren't the same person. The version in the film is loud and unpredictable, a man who reacts faster than he thinks. People who actually knew Tommy DeSimone described someone very different. He wasn't chaotic, he was methodical. He would carry a gun inside a brown paper bag and walk up to someone looking like he was carrying lunch, and it would be over before anyone understood what was happening. There was no panic in it. He had thought it through and perfected it. The movie made it messy. The real version was far more deliberate, and in some ways, that makes it much darker. So when you put all of it together, the ending stops looking simple. Billy Bats was only the starting point. Gotti had a personal grudge and finally had the cover to use it. Vario handed Tommy over not out of loyalty to the rules, but because of what Tommy had done to him personally. And behind all of it, a woman became the reason his own boss made the call. Nobody gave him a warning, nobody gave him a chance to explain. He wasn't killed for one thing, he was killed because everything he had been doing for years finally came together at the same moment. And when it did, there was nobody left willing to stand between him and what was coming.